Now we're ready to set up Firebase, giving our app a scalable backend in the cloud. The first thing you'll want to do is create a Firebase project. Once created, that will bring you to the dashboard, and we'll be coming back here frequently throughout the course. Firebase has official installation instructions on the Flutterfire website. You'll want to reference that documentation as the final source of truth when setting up Firebase in Flutter. The first thing we'll want to do in Flutter is install our Flutterfire packages. In this case, we'll need Firebase Core, along with Firestore and Firebase Auth. I'll go ahead and uncomment those in my package.json. From there, the documentation provides some initial boilerplate code to initialize Firebase. You can go ahead and copy and paste this code directly into your project in the main.dart file. Or better yet, use the snippet that I provided in the video description, because the official docs contain some widgets that don't exist, so you'd have to replace them with something else to get it working. It'll replace the automatically generated code that we already have from Flutter. If we take a closer look at this code, you can see it is a stateful widget, and inside that widget, it calls Firebase Initialize App. What this will do is look for your Firebase credentials in the project to establish a connection between your client-side app and the cloud. The initialization comes in the form of a future, so we add it to a future builder down here to show different states based on whether or not Firebase is available. If there's an error, we can show an error message, or if the connection state is done, then we'll show the main application. Otherwise, we can show a loading state. That gives us a basic starting point for the application, but now the question becomes, how do we set up our Firebase credentials for iOS and Android? To do that, we'll want to go back to the Firebase console, and at the top, you'll see a cog icon that will take you to the project settings. From there, find the button to add a new app to the project. The first thing I'll cover is the iOS integration. When you register the app, you'll want to enter the bundle ID that you selected at the beginning of the course. When you click Next, it's going to generate an info.plist file with all of your Firebase credentials. Go ahead and download that file. It doesn't really matter where, because you need to manually add that file in Xcode. Go ahead and open up the Flutter project in Xcode by going to the iOS directory and open runner.xcode workspace. Then right-click Runner on the left side and choose Add Files. Select the Google Service info.plist file that you just downloaded and make sure to check the box for Copy Items. And now you should be good to go on iOS. Let's go ahead and switch gears to Android. In the Firebase console, we do the same thing where we add a new app to the project, and it will also ask you for the bundle ID. But you'll also notice that it gives you the option to enter a SHA-1 certificate. If you're using Google Sign-In, this will be required for it to work on your local testing device. I'd recommend setting this value up now, although you can do it later if needed. To get the value, go to the terminal in your Flutter project and cd into the Android directory. Run Gradle W followed by signing report to automatically generate the certificates you need. One of them should be SHA-1, so go ahead and copy that value and paste it into the Firebase console where requested. Now that that's done, go ahead and click Next, and it will give you a Google Services.json file. What you want to do with this file is download it into the Android app directory. It needs to be in that exact location for Flutterfire to find it. Now there's a couple of other modifications that we'll need to make when it comes to Android. The first one is in the Android build Gradle file. You'll want to just copy this code from the official documentation, but what you're looking for is the build script object, followed by the dependencies object, then you add the line class path with the Google Services dependency. Now, confusingly, there's also a build.gradle file in the Android app directory. You'll need to go into that file and add the line apply plugin with the Google Services plugin. And the final thing we'll want to do here is enable multidex. If you're targeting older Android versions, multidex needs to be enabled, so we can do that by going to the Android default config and setting multidex enable to true, and then adding that package as a dependency. And now Firebase should be fully configured for Android. That was kind of a lot of work, but my recommendation is to just follow the instructions in the official documentation very closely. And if you get some kind of weird error, just Google it, because you're probably not the first one. The moment of truth is when you pull up the terminal and enter the flutter run command again. In my case, the app built successfully, and I just have an empty material app as the starting point.